Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Mindy with SnapNHD, Natural Hazard Disclosures. I appreciate you joining me today. And I always love to make my classes interactive. So even though we're on Zoom, anytime you have a question and I'm going over these revised new forms for FHDS under the CAR zip forms, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask any questions along the way. You don't have to wait till the very end. So I just want to share that with you. I love it when you guys are working with me. So did you realize that on July 1st, CAR updated a lot of their zip forms? And because SnapNHD has been approved and authorized by CAR to add the FHDS form to all of our reports 4 years ago. We were the first company approved to do that. It's never been done in 30 years. And it's because when AB 38 was passed July 1st of 2021, it was to ensure that homes that are in a high fire zone built before 2010, 1 to 4 units, required defensible space inspections, in addition to home hardening on the house in order to make the home less vulnerable in case, God forbid, there's a fire. So on July 1st, CAR updated the fire hardening defensible space advisory form, adding 12 new questions for the seller to fill out. This is just like the TDS. You don't touch this form. You guide your seller. Did you or did you not address these issues on your home? Nothing needs to be done to sell the house. Nothing needs to be done to purchase the house. You need to disclose accurately if you did anything to make it less vulnerable. It's that simple. There's no right or wrong. It's just yes and no questions that the seller must disclose. So, thank you so much, Rick, for always helping. Let's get started. So I joined SnapNHD 2.5 years ago because we have special features that no one else has in the industry. This is still a non-regulated industry for the last 31 years. When CAR created and the state of California created the NHD industry, I want to remind everybody, we're the only state in the country who provides this type of disclosure to the buyer on the biggest purchase of their life. And there's a lot of weather going on everywhere else in this country east of us, and they don't have an NHD report. Isn't that crazy? So I find it really exciting, actually, that we are here to protect the buyer and share with them everything we can that is affecting the property. Don't forget, material fact affects the desirability and the value of the house, which is the total reason that this report was created. And Civil Code 1103.7 was born 31 years ago. Okay, next slide. Thanks for helping me, Rick. So I want to share that we have a really cool feature on our website called Hazards Preview. Can everybody see the full screen of the hazard preview, or I know my face is covering up part of that. Can everybody see it? Can you see it, Rick? The full hazard preview screen? Or is it just me where I look at your face and my face and everybody that's joining us is on the
Yes,
corner?
we see the screen. Yes.
You can see the whole thing that says in and out? Okay.
Correct.
So anytime that you would like to know, is the property in a landslide zone? Is it in a fire zone? People call me all the time from Palos Verdes and say, especially after the landslide that happened last year, can you provide maps, Mindy, of areas in Palos Verdes that are not in a landslide area? Or can I provide maps that are not in fire zones? No, it's too difficult to do that. We can't look at the whole hill and analyze, every single home that is or is not in that zone. So the best thing to do, other than ordering a report for free and using it for free and only paying for it when escrow closes, No close, you never pay for the report, but you use it. Now you can go on SnapNHD.com, enter a property address in California, and it will pop up the 6 natural hazards on the statutory form from CAR: flood, fire, liquefaction, landslide. Are you in a fault zone? Are you in an earthquake zone? So those 6 items on the form will pop up automatic as if you're ordering a report, but you don't go through the whole process. And it'll actually show you, like it does on the screen, in or out of the zone. So how cool is that? Let's pretend, I want Debbie to show me open houses on Saturday. And what if I go see 6 different homes, find one that I fall in love with, put a deposit down, then open escrow, find out I'm in a landslide or a fire zone that I do not want to live in, and then fall out of escrow? We've wasted everybody's time and energy when you could avoid even going to see the home because you knew in advance that you're in this zone. So it's really cool. I highly recommend trying it. Take a snapshot, please, of this. And let me know if you have any questions to get online to do it. It's really cool. Yes, Rick? Oh, okay. So, no questions? Okay, cool. Next slide, please. So, as I was saying, AB 38 was passed July of 2021. Well, it was passed 2019, but it went into effect 2021. So it's nothing new. It's been around for a long time. It was because not only have we seen our beautiful state having more and more fires throughout the year where there's almost no fire time zone anymore. Like it used to be, oh, this is the time of year when we have high fires. Now it might be throughout the whole year. So as a result, it's really important that people know in advance what is affecting the properties. Next slide, please. If you find out that the property is in a high fire zone, the questions that you want to be asking the seller, we can go to the next slide, Rick. The questions that you want to ask the seller are things like, who is insuring your property today in this high fire zone or landslide zone, whatever zone you're in? See if that insurance company is willing to insure the new buyer. If not, find out before you even put the house on the market, who's going to insure it? Because unless it's all cash, you have to have insurance to get the loan. This is for flood insurance and fire insurance. So I've noticed talking to different lenders throughout the year, quite a few homes are falling out of escrow, especially in the condo townhome environments. If the HOA is not on top of their game, and if they don't have insurance to make sure that people in these fire and flood zones have insurance for the HOA, they can't get the loan either. Nobody's going to be able to buy or sell property in those complexes. So it's good to know up front what you're working with so you can start asking these very important questions to avoid the pitfalls when you get into escrow. Next slide, please. So as a reminder, what is home hardening, fire hardening? It's basically to help provide protection on the home so that it has the best survival rate if, God forbid, there's a fire. So, did you take the wood shingles and turn them into fire resistant shingles? Did you close anything that's open throughout the entire house? The eaves, the openings that are maybe under the garage door. They've even talked about in this last go round where they updated the forms, has the homeowner even closed off in the vents, areas that have space, even just a hairline of space where fire could travel into the house and then move around the house so that it spreads that much faster? Has the wood siding turned into fire resistant material? Did they change out the single pane windows to dual pane tempered windows? Did they add screens? Screens are like having a screen in front of your fireplace. It does help if the embers are flying out to keep them more secure. People don't realize that mulch, wood chips, bark can all go up in flames. So if you switch that out for rocks and pebbles that do not burn, that's a lot safer, especially in the zone 0 and 1 that are closest to the house. Again, the openings like vents, anything non-protected that can be closed off is going to help save the home that much faster. And then, of course, is a deck literally attached to the house that's made out of wood, combustible material? A lot of times people are swapping out the material for non-combustible decks, but they don't realize they're using tape that might help join the spaces together that are not fire resistant. So even as far as the tape goes, you want to use materials that are not going to go up in smoke. Next slide. So zone 0 is the closest to the house, 0 to 5 feet. Zone 1 is 5 to 50 feet. And then zone 2 is 50 to 100 feet. So clearly, the closer to the home, the more chance of fire around the structure, basically burning down the house. So if you can avoid having combustible trees in these areas that are closest to the home, this is the purpose of the defensible space inspection. If someone came to the home within the last 6 months, gave an inspection, it passed, and the homeowner got a certificate, that certificate is good for the transaction if it was in the last 6 months. If the certificate was more than 6 months ago, then yes, each home in a high fire zone built before 2010, 1 to 4 units, requires an inspection. However, there are no properties in any area of Central Coast or Southern California that require an inspection during escrow. The buyer's going to have 1 year from the day escrow closes to make sure the property is in compliance with AB 38. So this is why it's good to know up front, did the homeowner do anything in the past to bring the property up to compliance? And if so, it's just maintenance every year, opposed to they did nothing to make the property compliant. And how's that going to affect the new homeowner? Next slide. So the decision tree, FHDS, and CAR forms all are filled out by the seller. You can guide them like the TDS, but it's because they need to disclose what they did or did not do on the property. And again, there's no right or wrong. So CAL FIRE updated a lot of the local maps. 485 cities adopted and approved the maps. They had not been updated in the local time zones for 14 years. So this is why when you get your report from SnapNHD, it's imperative that you look at the statutory form from CAR, to flood, to fire, to earthquake, and determine by reading the map, or sorry, reading the form. Do not look at maps, only look at our report. Are you or are you not in a high fire zone in the local responsibility area or the state responsibility area? How do you know the difference? The form shows you for the last year, high fire zone, and they added the words LRA for local responsibility area. The state responsibility has been there for 31 years. So you have to see which box is checked in order to know which zone this particular property is in. Next slide, please. When you know which zone it's in, high fire on the local level, it will always be the local fire department doing the inspection. If it is on the high fire zone on the state level, it will always be CAL FIRE, the state responsibility area with a government agency. So think of state with state and local with local. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the portion of the FHDS form that was in place for the last 4 years.
Hey, Mindy, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
On that, state, local, what if, and will it ever, I mean, I feel like it will, like in PV especially, fall into both? So if it falls into local and state, is that possible? And if so, which one it won't?
It's
Okay.
not possible. It's one or the other. Good question, Matt. And that's why CAR updated the form, thank goodness, last year, because, or no, 2 years ago, sorry, 2 years ago, because people didn't know which one it was. Am I in the state area or the local area of high fire? And now that CAL FIRE redid all the local maps in our state, 22% more of the state is in fire zones. So we adopted the maps, we added them. It was back in, I want to say March, the end of March. So all of our reports have been using up-to-date maps. Everything was adopted, which meant approved and adopted to be used specifically for this purpose. And you, as real estate agents with your license in California, never want to go on the maps to try to determine are you in or out of the zone for two reasons. A, you're not an expert map reader. I say that jokingly, but honest. Don't do it, because if you're wrong, it all falls on you, the liability. And the reason that CAR created this third-party provider like SnapNHD, or for those of you that have known me, I've been doing this almost 21 years. I started with Property ID. I was the regional manager for 9 years in LA. I left and went to MyNHD because their report was better. And the reason I left MyNHD and went to SnapNHD 2.5 years ago is that we're the only one with the local vegetation ordinance section when you're in a high fire zone. Instead of you trying to find the information for that from each city, I remember 3.5, 4 years ago during COVID, I was getting so many calls, not just from Palos Verdes, all over my territory, which is Santa Monica to Hollywood and the whole South Bay and PV. So Hollywood, Palisades, PV, people were calling, going wild over, oh my God, I'm in this fire zone. Now what do I do? How do I help myself? It became an issue where it took 3 to 4 weeks, 30 emails just to try to find the information from each city on this local vegetation ordinance section so that you could continue moving forward on the FHDS form. Well, thankfully, the compliance director for SNAP 4 years ago did all your hard work, and we added into our report every single local ordinance section in the whole state, so that all you have to do is look at our report and it's there. So under section 2B, these 6 items that we basically went over for home hardening are a yes or no question. There's no right or wrong answer. The seller just discloses if they did or did not do these 6 items that we just discussed. Are there any questions so far? Okay, so if the seller's not aware, I don't know, did I do it? The answer is always no. If they're not sure, they don't live in the property, they're old, they're tired, whatever reason. If they're not sure, always mark no. Next slide. So this is the section that was added on July 1st, section C, the list of low-cost retrofits. And this list of 12 new questions were added by the state of California because the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, which is CAL FIRE, determined, along with California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, that these 12 items on home hardening reduced the vulnerabilities if, God forbid, there's a fire. We're not saying that the house is going to survive. We're just saying that the risk is lowered, which is huge. So, did you replace the roof with a Class A fire rated roof? Yes or no? Are the spaces between the roof and the coverings blocked with non-combustible materials? Did they install non-combustible gutters and covers on the gutters so that the leaves and the accumulation of debris doesn't sit in the gutter and then potentially catch on fire. And I didn't even realize, just think about it. You have a combustible gutter in addition to the leaves inside. That's just higher risk. So we're reducing the risk and vulnerability. Did they cover the chimney and any kind of stovepipe outlet with non-combustible, corrosion-resistant metal? They can add a mesh screen so that the sparks don't fly out. Anything that has a 1/2 inch or 3/8 of an inch opening must be closed. They've proven that closed vents, closed everything that has any kind of space to have the fire travel throughout the house just gives the home that much greater chance of survival. Number 6, have you caulked or plugged any gaps greater than 1 inch around the rafters so that it's preventing the ember intrusion into the attic and other exposed spaces? CAL FIRE has proven that even going through these areas like at the top of your chimney, if that's not closed, or any of these little gaps, if the fire can go through that space, it spreads through the house that much faster. And even those little tiny spaces, like I was saying, underneath your back door, front door, side doors, garage doors, these little tiny openings, when the earth moves and things settle, like I live in an old house in the South Bay. And every time the earth moves a little, some days I can't close the top lock. Other days I can. So that little shift, I can see the opening at the top of my door because it's no longer square. So when that happens, if you're in a fire zone, what do you do to close these exposed areas? Number 7, inspect the exterior siding for dry rot, gaps, cracks, warping. Again, anything non-combustible needs to be switched. Combustible needs to be switched to non-combustible. You caulk and plug up all your gaps and just make sure that there's nothing that's going to basically catch on fire and go up in smoke. If you install weather stripping in these gaps of the doors, windows, anything that could have an ember intrusion, and it must be compliant with the UL standard 10C. This again means don't use weather stripping that is combustible, right? Make sure it's non-combustible material throughout the entire house. When they replace the windows with multi-pane windows, at least one tempered glass, it doesn't break as quickly. It doesn't get as hot. When you replace the sliding or the deck doors, anything related to the deck that's attached to the house, we just want to make sure nothing is combustible. And then they're talking about wildland urban interface. There are products that are now coming out on the market that can be used in these high fire zones and very high fire zones to reduce the ignition resistance. Have you covered all the openings for skylights? People don't stop and think that even those mesh screens and openings of the screens, if it's not completely secure, could the embers slide through those spaces as well? And then number 6 is, have they installed a minimum 6-inch metal flashing that goes vertically on the exterior wall of decks, sliding doors, etc., just so that the intersection of these materials are as tight as possible? So again, it's reducing vulnerabilities. These 12 new items that are added are simply for the seller to say, yes, I did, or no, I did not do these items to my house, period. Any questions on these new questions? They're not hard. You did it or you didn't do it. Like the house, great. If you don't want to live in a fire zone, it's not going to change. The chances of things falling out are rare, which is why I was shocked when these new maps were updated that a little portion of the peninsula actually fell out of the fire zone on a local level. Amazing. I don't know why. People have asked me, how did it fall out? I don't know. The new maps didn't come with explanations of why something went into the zone or why something fell out of the fire zone. But yay for the peninsula. Next slide. So this is where people seem to get confused. I probably get 4 to 5 questions a day for the last 4 years about defensible space and how do I know if the property has local vegetation ordinance section. So in our report, under additional disclosures, AB 38, FHDS, we have in our table of contents that heading. It tells you the page number. Typically, it's around page 8, and we spell it out for you. So if the seller is unaware that the property is in compliance, it's very simple. They either got the certificate in the last 6 months and the property is in compliance, or they did not do a defensible space inspection in the last 6 months and it is not in compliance. There's no right or wrong. So if they have it, the certificate, the buyer checks 3B2, that it is in compliance. If they do not have an up-to-date compliance, no big deal. They check 3B3. Property is not in compliance. It's simple. That's it. Next slide. So under 3C, who's going to be responsible to make sure the property has the local vegetation ordinance section and the inspection done? Do you think that the seller ever wants to hang around once escrow closes to make sure their old property that they just sold is in compliant? No. So almost always, and I have to say it like that, and so do you, almost always, 99% of the time, it will be the buyer's responsibility. And the buyer will have 1 year from the day escrow closes to bring the property up to compliance. So there's only 2 options. 3C number 2 says buyer responsibility and that it is required as a close of escrow. Well, just so you know, the only areas that require a defensible space inspection in the entire state of California are all in Northern California. The city of El Dorado, Truckee, and Paradise are the only locations at this moment that require inspections. You cannot close escrow at all in those areas. But here in Southern California, everywhere, close escrow, and the buyer has a whole year to be compliant. So it's almost always 3C3. Any questions? Okay, cool. Next slide.
Yeah, quick question again. Sorry, Mindy.
Oh, that's good.
So buyer has a year. What are the consequences if the buyer does not become compliant within a year?
Great question. My understanding, because every city is different, but for example, in Malibu, and I believe in Palos Verdes as well, when they come out, inspect the property, tell you what to do as the homeowner, give you typically 30 days to do the work. When the fire department or CAL FIRE comes back to the property and sees you did not do the work, seller, they fine you. They usually give you another 30 days to do the work. They come back, you didn't do it again. My understanding is some of them fine you the second time. Some of them, like in Malibu, come back and do the work and then charge the homeowner. I've been hearing about a lot of liens going on the properties. So these liens very often are when the homeowner did not do the defensible space inspection for a year or more. It's sitting as a lien on the property. Then when they go to sell the house, this happened about a month ago, buyer's agent called freaking out. Seller won't take care of the lien. We can't sell the property. They want the buyer to pay for the lien. And they're like, no, the lien was before you put the house on the market. You didn't take care of defensible space. That's on you. No one will buy your house until you fix it. So this is why it's so important to know what hazardous zones they're in advance, to ask these questions to avoid this problem. They could have avoided this if they asked all the right questions and got that information even from title, apparently. They didn't find out until the week escrow was closing when they got the 9A report back and it had a lien on it. Then everybody freaked out and the seller acted like they had no clue. Meanwhile, they had to have known because it was 2 years old, not 1 year. So in answer to your question, yes, you can get fined and it can even have a lien on it. State of California is not waiting around for the homeowner to get off their butt to take care of this because it affects the entire community. If one house doesn't take care of the defensible space and their home hardening and they have a fire, God forbid, it could affect the entire neighborhood. You saw the embers flying down the street in the high winds. That was crazy, right? 50, 60, 80-mile-an-hour winds. What if the winds are only 20, 30 mile an hour? That's still significant enough for them to be flying down a neighborhood. So,
And
we
correct me
just,
if I'm wrong, but do they have to, does the buyer or the new owner, I guess, have to schedule it, or will the local and state automatically, aren't they supposed to do that ever so often anyway?
no, they just come around either by drone, letter, or knock on your door. So let's go to the next slide. That's a good question. I'm going to show you. Let's go to the next one. What you need to look for. So in the SnapNHD report under AB 38, fire hardening and defensible space disclosure, take a picture of this. This is the page you want to look for in the table of contents that we give you, usually around page 8. We provide links and it says, see right here, for a defensible space inspection, the third blue link on this page of AB 38 fire hardening is where the homeowner, whether it's the seller currently or the new buyer, whoever's going to take responsibility, can click on that link and get it started. Ask for the defensible space inspection immediately. You might get it within a week or 3 weeks. It just depends on how busy they are. And that way it could at least be in the process. See right here where it says very high fire severity zone? Yes. And then it's broken down to fire hazard severity zone, high, very high fire severity zone, state, very high fire severity zone, local. Whichever one is checked is who's doing the inspection. And you don't have to do anything but read it, see which one is checked, and then have the homeowner or the new buyer click the third blue link on that AB 38 page, asking for the inspection. They get back to you and schedule it. And it's that simple. And then at the bottom of that page, we have the local vegetation ordinance section so that when you're guiding your seller, just like on the TDS, they know how to fill out section 3C, 3. It's that simple. Don't call the fire department. Don't knock on their door. Don't visit them. That's not how you do the process. When you find out from the PV fire department or Lomita, oh my God, we don't do inspections. People freak out and go, what happened, Mindy? What do you mean they don't do the inspection? Maybe that department and that particular fire chief is not in the loop, and then everybody goes crazy. So go through the process that Cal Fire and the local fire departments asked you to do, because believe it or not, there's only one person for the entire area of Los Angeles who schedules these. One person. Is that crazy or what? Talk about lack of manpower. So it's a slow process. You can't be in a hurry. And that's why the buyer has a whole year to be compliant from the day escrow closes. I think there's another slide. So the wildfire disclosure report went on the RPA 3 years ago. SnapNHD was the first company asked by CAR to provide it to the whole state and roll it out. It is a satellite view of the property, giving all kinds of logistics of what to do in zones 0, 1, and 2 to make sure the property is less vulnerable. And it doesn't replace the defensible space inspection. It just gives the homeowner a great idea of what needs to be done so they're not scared to move forward. Next slide. So it identifies trees, all kinds of things on their deck. Do they have wood piles, patio furniture, kids' play sets, anything that's vulnerable within those closer zones like 0 and 1 to reduce the vulnerability. And the less risk, the better opportunity to get insurance. So they are looking at what's happening on the property before they insure it. They're flying over with drones. And the insurance companies, by the way, don't use our report. They have their own maps and their own findings. Next slide. So we also went over this. It's just reducing risk and vulnerability. And unfortunately, the California Fair Plan has become the go-to insurance for so many properties. And I know a lot of them are not covered hardly at all. And if it's more than 3 million, they won't cover it as well. So it's creating a lot of havoc, unfortunately. Next slide. This is the hazard rating, regulation compliance, vulnerability analysis, and they took out the pricing because the whole state had such different pricing from Northern, Central, and Southern California that people were getting irritated that it was looking like it could cost $2,000 to $10,000, which is a huge flux. Which one is it? Well, if you go pick up people at Home Depot to do the work, it's not going to cost the same as, hiring an arborist, right? So they took the price out, but they've given all of these incredible details of what to do in each zone, how many trees to cut back, remove, what to do with the vents, the opening, the structure to structure type of situation. So it's a very detailed report of a specific property to help the homeowner be less vulnerable. And for only $140, I think it's a great tool to help people have peace of mind in an environment where they're scared. Next. And I think the next slide just has my information. Yeah. So I am your NHD resource. I am always available to be of service any way that I can. If I don't have the information, I have a team of people behind me. Larry, our compliance director, is amazing. He's been doing this for 30 years. We have additional maps. We can talk to you, your clients, if there's ever issues that we can help you with. So thank you so much, Rick, for helping me with the slides. I pulled up my presentation and couldn't figure out how to share it today. So thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions? No? Was I
Thank you,
that thorough?
Mindy. Yeah. Any questions? Last chance for questions for Mindy before we go today.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I'm always here to help you. Go out and have safe real estate. Practice safe real estate because it's vulnerable out there. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys.
All right.
And
Thank you, Mindy. Thanks, everybody. All right. See you next
more
time.
information.
Bye.
Okay. Have a good day. Thanks, Rick.